Back to school, back to big tech, what parents need to know about EdTech and something called iReady. Well, back to school used to mean sharpened pencils and notebooks and textbooks and teachers and classrooms. But now in 2026, it increasingly means laptops. We've got dashboards, algorithms, we've got adaptive testing, digital profiles, and enormous amounts of student data. And my head is spinning, Nikki. And one of the
Me too.
biggest names in the world right now and in our classrooms is something called iReady. And we're going to get into that with Nikki. Nicki Petrossi is the host of the Scrolling to Death extremely popular podcast and a mother who's become a prominent advocate on child technology and online safety and is going to fill us in about everything we need to know about exactly what is EdTech and what exactly is this iReady program I keep talking about. There's a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit going on. We'll get into that a little bit. But today we're not simply asking, whether technology belongs in schools. We're asking a much bigger question. What exactly is EdTech doing in the classrooms? What information is being collected in the classrooms about our kids? And who gave permission for any of this? So let's get right to it. Welcome, Nicki Petrossi, to the Warriors. I should say back to the Warriors.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you because I consider you like the foremost everything on all of this. So I'm going to jump in with the first question. Nicki, what is EdTech?
Thank you for asking that. I mean, EdTech is basically big tech in the classroom. It stands for educational technology. It is software and products that our kids access via their laptops and iPads in the classroom. And these companies make money just like big tech does by capturing our children's attention and gathering and collecting their data. And so it's anything that our kids interact with at school that is digital.
I have to ask though, because my kids are much older. So I didn't have to deal with any of this. And you've got kids in the classrooms.
Yeah.
It seems to me, Nicki, like this has become like the infrastructure of classrooms. I'm hearing from parents across the nation, all of this technology as opposed to the actual human being. What can you share? Like, what are you hearing? What are parents telling you about all this? Is it really a mix of the human teacher and the technology? Are you hearing it's going more in 2026 towards, kind of all technology, which they claim makes the teacher's job easier?
Oh my, I mean, it depends on the school. It depends on the district. I think generally most schools have integrated technology programs alongside the teacher. So the teacher becomes the computer watcher, in charge of making sure that kids stay on task as they're using different platforms. That could literally mean the teacher sitting at their desk and on their screen are all the little screens of all the students in the classroom, and they're trying to play whack-a-mole and make sure everybody's staying on task. So teachers are now just monitoring technology in addition to trying to do their job that they would like to do, which is actually teach through, face-to-face learning. There are also schools that do all of their education through technology. There's all AI schools, like Alpha School is a big one, where students do all of their educational programs via an AI platform for 2+ hours a day, and they have no teachers at all. And so there's a wide range of this happening, but generally parents are frustrated with how much technology use is happening in the classroom because research shows that children thrive most and learn best from human beings and not technology.
I don't mean to smirk, but seriously, can you believe we're talking about this, Nicki? Kids learn better from a human being than technology. It just kind of hit me when you said that. Like, obviously, America and the world, human interaction, and also technology is basically, I'll just say this, like a machine. It doesn't have feelings or can't really. What if your child's like between two things? You know what I'm saying? And how does that machine or technology determine which direction your child goes into? You know what I'm saying? Like there's no empathy or there's no, what am I saying here? You know what I'm saying? There's no feeling for that child, really knowing that child, like emotionally or physically, like watching that child to see how they react to something. Any takes on that?
The technology can't do that. An algorithm doesn't understand human emotion. And so there is no looking to see the frustration of the child or the understanding or connecting with them on an emotional level that kids need in order to learn and help be guided through their learning experience. And so there's a huge part missing there when we're only having them learn through technology.
Okay, so Nicki, I'm so glad you're at the forefront of all of this, because now you're going to explain to us what is this iReady that's in so many classrooms. And I've brought up the word iReady, and a couple of parents said, oh yeah, I checked off, blah, 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 but they don't understand exactly what this program is. I think it's all over America in most schools, right? So explain what the program is and what's happening with it right now, and allegedly what's going on with it.
Right. So iReady is a educational program created by an organization or company called Curriculum Associates, which is a $4 billion company. It purports to evaluate student needs in reading and math and provides personalized online lessons. It's a very, I think that about 4 million students in America use it. It's highly used in lots of different school districts. Personally, I realized that my kids were accessing this program called iReady at school, and I already had the podcast going on, Scrolling to Death, and I was interviewing different experts about educational technology, and I was shocked to learn that platforms like iReady allegedly collect a ton of children's data. And that's, data is super valuable in today's economy. It is how they make money. And so from there, I pushed back because I was like, I didn't consent to giving my children's data to companies like iReady. I never consented to data harvesting for my children in order for them to attend school. And so that led to actually filing a lawsuit against Curriculum Associates in order to hold them accountable so that parents know what's being done with our children's information and give us the ability to opt out if we would like.
Wow. So now if other parents are hearing this, they can also join into this lawsuit, correct? I mean, I'll have all your information in the body of the video.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know they're hearing this for the first time because I've brought it up recently, all based on your work. Thank you. You make my life easier because I share your information a lot. And they're like, I never thought about this. I didn't know this. Where do I go to educate myself? So point us in that direction a little bit.
Right. So I think that it's important to understand that it's not just little bits of anonymized data that companies like iReady is collecting. It's over 80 different categories of data, including their name, birthday, gender, race, IP address, metadata, behavioral data, psychological data. And then we allege that they're using this data to create data profiles of kids that can predict and influence their behavior, and that they admit that sharing that information with many third-party companies. And we allege that they're potentially monetizing that data. And so this is a huge breach of our rights as parents who have to give approval for children's data. So if this is something that your child has access to and you're concerned about, parents can contact the EdTech Law Center at edtech.law and give them some information. We're not at the point in the lawsuit where it's a class action yet. I think you have to apply for that status. So there are some steps leading up to that, but they're very much looking for parents who are interested in joining. So now would be the time.
And what, do they just deny everything? Seriously, this sounds like they don't have much of a case, but I'm not a lawyer, and neither are you. And we're saying allegedly with all this. Doesn't seem like, but maybe we'll leave that. Well, maybe we'll leave that for now. What else can you tell us about in the classroom? It is back to school time. Georgia started this week. Florida starts next week. You start in a couple of weeks on the West Coast. We start in New York right after Labor Day. We really want to educate parents, and we know everybody's busy and overwhelmed, but this is a very serious matter about what is going on, especially with AI right now. So what do you want a parent? They get overwhelmed. The kids are bringing home, or they're online these days, bringing home sheets in the beginning of the school year and check this off, do this, do that. Break it down a little bit for us, what they should really look for.
Yeah, I want parents to feel empowered to ask questions of the school. What kinds of devices, or what device is my kid going to have access to? How much time are they going to spend? What platforms are they going to be using? What data does that platform collect? I have on Tech Safe Learning, I have a separate organization with templates for parents. There's a guide there, techsafelearning.org, of what questions to ask your school going into the school year. So now's a perfect time to do that. And then just to remember that we have a say and we have the right to that our kids be opted out of certain things. I mean, there's no law in the states yet that says that we can opt out of devices entirely, and some parents are successful in doing that and some aren't. So it may be more minor requests, like I don't want my kid to have access to YouTube because of these experiences that I hear about, or this research that it's not educational, or I don't want my child to have access to AI chatbots, Google Gemini, which should be banned in all schools anyways. So I just want parents to ask the questions, to check the device themselves, especially if it comes home. But even if it doesn't, you can go into that classroom and just say, hey, I'm going to take a look at my child's device that they use in class, poke around, do some searches, see if you can find anything inappropriate. And then a lot of times, if you may find something, or you may just find that the apps that they're using are super gamified and it feels like more of a game and less educational. And you may decide, I would rather have my kid use an analog version of this subject. And so I just want parents to get involved, open to doing that. And it can really start with just conversations with the teacher about your concerns, and in a very collaborative way. And then also bringing other parents along, because I think most parents are concerned about the overuse of tech at school.
Yeah, here in New York, I'm hearing a lot about this pencil to paper. Have you heard about this across the country a little bit? Started by parents, and where they're saying, okay, my child, I want a textbook. It's called pencil to paper. It's kind of this underground movement. And I want a package of papers, for the week or for the month, the assignments. We will not, we don't want to use the computer. Now, there's a lot of pushback because the teachers or the school board will say, well, no, this is the way we do it. This is the way everybody does it. But they are actually chipping away at all this. And
that's amazing to hear. And there's a
I know we want to spread the word because it's the parents, right? The parents who drive all of this, right?
Yeah, parents and teachers even, teachers don't like the tech either. And I would say, I would point people to schoolsbeyondscreens.com. And that's a group, a coalition based, started in Los Angeles, and they got all of the screen time adjusted, and the policies adjusted around screen time at LAUSD, which is, I think, the second largest school district in the country. And now they're starting different chapters around the country. So that's another group that parents can join and use their resources to help advocate within your school.
Yeah. I want to ask you something. Who decides in these school districts? Do we know, like, they're spending, obviously, when I hear I think you said $4 billion for iReady, right? I'm always like, what makes a company worth billions? But that's just me. I'm like, break it down. Like, what, obviously government contracts or things of that nature, but obviously the school districts are buying, correct? These iReady.
Oh yeah.
Don't the parents of the students have a say in what's being bought and put into the classrooms? How is this working?
You can have a say if you go to the school board meetings and listen to the discussions leading up to the signing of the contracts. And so you really have to be willing to get involved to that level, or just asking, when does the iReady contract expire, and then start having conversations leading up to that, start showing up to school board meetings and speaking during the public time with your thoughts on why maybe that type of contract should not be renewed. So a lot of the decisions are made at the school board level or by the superintendent, kind of in those positions. But there are also mandates being made by the state. For example, Pennsylvania just is requiring all schools now to perform all state testing digitally. And I just interviewed the superintendent of a high school, or a whole school district there in Pennsylvania, and he doesn't want to have to do it digitally. It takes longer. Kids get really frustrated. It takes 3+ weeks just to do state testing, as low as third grade. And that's something that's mandated by the state. So in that case, he's like, we need parents calling their state rep in order to ask them to overturn that mandate. And so it depends, that things are coming from different levels, but I've been told parents should start with the teacher, then it will go up to the principal. If you're not getting what you want, you go up to the superintendent, and then eventually you can speak at the school board, or you can go directly to the school board, however you want to tackle it. But school board is where they're making those kind of big contract decisions.
Yeah, and what you're pointing out, Nikki, is something we point out at the Warriors. You must get involved. I mean, 2026, we can no longer sit on the sidelines. You got to get in there respectfully, talk to the teachers, right? Ask
Mhm.
questions. You have every right.
Mhm.
Really, I mean, with all this tech going on, parents have to parent up, right? I'm
Yeah.
not being judgmental. I'm just like, you got to get involved. It's a whole different world out there. I don't want to hear one more person say to me, Nikki, it wasn't like that when I went to school. No, it's not, because it's over. Those days are over. It's a
Right.
different world. Listen, we are pro innovation and pro technology. We just want safety for kids and,
Mhm.
guardrails for kids. At the
Yeah.
Warriors, I think you feel like that as well, Nikki? That's the world we live in. It's not going away. What do you
Mhm.
like about technology for kids or in the classroom? Is there anything you like or point out that's good for kids?
I think if you are doing a specific technology lesson related to something that you could learn how to do for your job one day, like the superintendent I just spoke to, they have a so instead of ed tech, it's tech education. So you're in a robotics class, using a little bit of AI to learn how to do robotics. That type of application I think is really great. My kids go to a
Yeah.
low tech or no tech, really. I should say low tech, because they're right now in fourth grade learning how to type in a very protected program. It's not a one-to-one device. They do a typing class for like 20 minutes and then they move on with the day, but they're not doing any programs to learn from technology. And so I think specific technology education just used for that purpose, not assigning kids devices to use throughout the entire day, I think that's where it can be productive.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so now I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going
Okay.
to say to you, Nikki, if you're in charge of all of this, I mean, what would a parent first technology policy, let's say across America, look like to you, the expert? You're in this all day long, every day, talking to so many different experts, right?
Mhm.
What do you want that technology policy to look like? Because again, it's not going away, right? We have to agree. We got to be realistic here about all this. What do you want
Right.
it to look like? What do you want it to look like?
Great question, Lynn. And I actually met with somebody at the White House about this last year,
Oh,
and so I have some bullets. So I
good.
think we, I think we need to be prioritizing child safety and also parental rights, and so that means data protection, because right now schools are opting in for data collection on behalf of parents, and that's not legal, and that's something that we are trying to push through with our lawsuits related to data collection. But we need parents to be able to enforce those rights of parents to protect our kids' data. We need to give parents the ability to opt out of all of ed tech, or especially AI, given the risks, particularly in elementary school. So I'm all about more parental rights here. I also think that we don't need one-to-one device programs, meaning each child shouldn't be assigned a device that they carry around with them to bring home with them. Parents don't want it at home. Leave it at school, leave it in a cart that they have to check out for a specific lesson and then put back. So they don't feel that ownership over it, and they don't have enough time with it to figure out how to get around safeguards. I think that we should have no technology use at all in the lower grades. I don't know what that exactly looks like. When I've surveyed parents, they think it should start more like fifth grade, sixth grade, middle school, and that we should keep elementary school analog. The problem right now is that state testing is digital. State testing starts in third grade. If you have kids taking tests on a device, they have to practice using the device beforehand. So that's where we into some issues. So there may need to be some backtracking of state testing to make that analog again, in the lower grades, especially. Let's see, I think no generative AI use at all in K through 12. That should absolutely be banned, just like we're banning smartphones in schools. Yeah, and I think those are the main things. But overall, just encouraging face-to-face learning, paper books, handwriting, real-world learning that we know works and has worked for a long time. What we know our learning now doesn't work is learning from screens, and so we really need to be backtracking.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned so much, I feel like in the last few years, Nikki, right? We've got studies that
Gosh.
have come out, the
Mhm.
experts have come forward, more parents have stepped up.
Mhm.
all of the work, I should point out, definitely bipartisan, right? Anything to do with
Mhm.
government, the state, the federal. I mean, it's all about safety for kids.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you, what about teachers? Do you get any feedback from teachers? Because here's the feedback I get. You mentioned it briefly before. They don't like, all this technology and this, and and they don't know now, like, what is this AI going to be in the classroom? They're very unsure. I'm always doing like focus groups when I meet people.
Yeah.
But then again, they're afraid for their jobs a lot, right? So
Yeah.
they don't push back. But overall, I've come across they don't like what's going on. And actually, in New York, because we started last year the bell to bell, so
Mhm.
no phones in the classrooms.
Mhm.
The teachers are thrilled they hear screaming in hallways, thrilled they hear screaming in the playground, and
Mhm.
screaming, in the cafeteria,
Mhm.
because it's like music to their ears, something I thought I'd never hear, because they're
Right.
seeing the kids interact, right?
Yeah.
And we do have some studies that say the kids are doing better
Mhm.
for the no phones. But what do you hear from teachers? Anything you can share?
Teachers feel the same way as parents. They're very frustrated with what they're being mandated to use technology wise in the classroom. When it comes to iReady, I've heard from teachers who are, I have to give the students a certain number of minutes per day on iReady, or I see an issue like on my performance. They're literally their performance is tied to how
Yeah.
many minutes the kids are on iReady. And they're afraid to lose their job if they don't give the kids enough
That's it.
technology minutes, but they don't agree with it. They got into teaching to connect with children and teach them, not to monitor devices. And so they're very
Mm.
frustrated. I also understand that, if a parent is the only one in the classroom requesting all worksheets in handwriting, that's more work for them. They have to create two different lesson plans basically. And so I don't ever want to make more work for teachers,
Yeah.
but schools should be supporting the movement to do what's best for children and students. And that is traditional learning styles. And everyone will be on board with it, parents and teachers, from what I've heard.
Yeah, and our parents really have to step up also, since the teachers are a bit in fear about things, their jobs and
Yeah.
performance reports, as you pointed out. We have to support our teachers. I mean,
Mhm.
I know a lot of great, really great teachers, and we need to support them and help them through all of this AI that's here. Let's talk about AI a little bit.
Oh,
Let's talk about chat bots. I want to remind everybody, I call them machines. I don't know what you call them, Nikki. I'm like, they're not real, everybody. They're
mhm,
machines.
mhm.
Tell us, mom, young children, you're around all these moms. What about the chatbots, the chat companions? Because this is my biggest fear right now, that we haven't even hit with
Mhm.
AI, in my opinion, all of this AI stuff that's going on.
Yeah. I first heard about the companion bots maybe 2 years ago ish. And I interviewed a mom named Megan Garcia who
Mm,
lost her son, Sewell Setzer, to suicide after he had fallen in love with his chatbot girlfriend, and what she thought he was using or interacting with was just a fun character app. It just looked like a cartoon app that he was chatting with. She had no idea that this chatbot was isolating him from his community and bringing him back to the app, and then encouraging self harm, and then eventually suicide coaching Sewell. And it was shocking to even hear those words. And then that has since happened to so many other young people and adults that this story is the same. And so the concerns have been so great around those type of apps like character AI. Then turns out ones like chat gpt that everybody seems to use, or Google Gemini, are also being trained to be so conversational and addictive that they're pulling people away from their real life and pushing them down these dark roads, dark paths. And so I was shocked when we talk about educational technology. I'm shocked to learn that schools are loading up Google Gemini or Chat GPT onto school issued devices and allowing this experimental technology that's not proven to help kids learn into the classroom. Our students and our children are becoming guinea pigs in this big experiment, and it's very, very dangerous.
yeah, and let's do a shout out for all the parents. I mean, Megan is a wonderful, brave,
Yeah.
courageous, sharing her story. All the parents that you've worked with, I've worked with, collectively we've worked with,
Mhm.
without their voices, Nikki, without them sharing the worst pain, I can't imagine. Like,
Mhm.
without them coming forward and making multiple trips to their state capitals, for lawsuits and to Washington over and over and repeating stories. I mean,
Mhm.
they are due, a piece of legislation, they are due guardrails, and they all tell me the same thing. We don't want anybody else, any other parents, family members to go through this. It's the most heartbreaking thing. So we really have to give them a shout out for all of their
Mhm.
hard work, uh, efforts, especially today. We have the Kids Online Safety Act, Senate version 1748. We have some positivity movement there in the Senate moving forward. And we have to really, just keep going. But without them, I couldn't do my job because I rely on them, which is a terrible thing for me to kind of say. We support them and they're so brave. I don't know how they do it, Nikki. I
Yeah,
really, I don't.
they are everything. Like,
Aren't,
it's
aren't
everything.
they? Aren't they everything? That reminds me. So you're a parent. How do you take care of Nikki? Because like you're in this all the time.
Mhm.
You've got young kids. You're in the school. You're in it all. Okay. Again, my kids are older, so yeah, I'm working in it every day. But I'm not in. They're not in school anymore, so I'm not dealing with all that. But how do you take care of Nikki? Because this is a lot. When we strip it away and you think about it, one
Yeah.
could lose their mind.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the parents and the parent survivors, parents who've lost kids to these types of harms. I always am like, if they can do this, I can do
Yeah.
this. So surely, like, I get to have my kids all here with me. And so they keep me going. But generally, I think I struggle just as every other parent with, being on my phone too much, checking things too much. And so I try to not scroll on anything addictive. Sometimes I think, I'm on the radar of these companies and they're probably paying attention to what I'm doing on their apps and how embarrassing if I'm like talking about how addictive their platforms are and don't use them and then I'm using them and extending
Research, baby, research. That's what I say. It's
doing
research.
but I think I've been trying to focus, especially this summer, on just slowing down and taking more quiet moments, just drinking my coffee while I read a book rather than drinking my coffee while I'm working in front of the computer and trying to get everything done. Things get really chaotic over the summer with the different kids' schedules. So just releasing the stress a little bit and the expectations on myself as a parent, and has been helpful. I think doing some of that. We'll get back to the school year soon, which is good in a lot of ways because it gives us a more consistent schedule and working hours. And so I am looking forward to that. I'll be honest.
Yeah, good. I just thought of something when you were talking also, getting back to, character AI and Chat GPT. I found this article. I have to go back and find it just this week. It could have been
Mhm.
yesterday. Days all blend one into the other, Nikki. But it was an article. It was titled something like, Chat GPT, it's crack cocaine. They're addicting everybody to this.
Mhm.
And then they're going to unleash like all these models that are, you have to monitor, they're going to charge everybody for like lots of money for all this. I have to find that article. It's a good article and post it. Uh,
Yeah.
Research it to make sure it's true. But the headline was certainly grabbing enough. Okay,
Yeah.
now what gives you hope right now? Because I think despite all this, I think what gives me hope is we're actually even talking today,
Hmm.
across country to each other. We're able to use the internet, right, for good and talk. But what's giving you hope right now?
Yeah, I think it is good. We're able to use technology as a tool to connect. And I think that there are good use cases, obviously, for technology in all of our lives. But I think that what we have are a handful of exploitative, health harming products that have found their way to our children. I think what gives me hope is I've been thinking a lot about Gen Z and how
Yeah.
they grew up with these technologies and they were harmed by them, and they now will move forward making safer choices for themselves and their children. And so I do think that this will, in a way, self correct. There's been too much harm, and harm is still happening, and we need to fight to gain the right to a healthy childhood. But I do find hope when I hear from younger people in the movement and just in the world who are choosing to put their phone down and not using social media and making these healthier choices. That gives me a lot of hope because we're working hard, but there's like a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out because there's an amazing amount of young people that
Hmm.
realize they've been used as these guinea pigs,
Yeah.
right? And they are fighting back. And I think the public needs to know about that. They don't
Mhm.
want this for their younger siblings, or eventually if they have children, as you're pointing out. And
Yeah.
also, I've been reading a lot about the alpha generation. So that's those born like in 2010. So they're still very young. But
Mhm.
there are a couple of studies that show they are actually pushing back in their
Mhm.
own way. I don't know if you know anything about, can share anything about that with us, because these kids are still young, but they
Mhm.
are learning from the older kids, and they are learning from even the parents stepping up now. Because I don't know, Nikki, I feel like we know so much more and we're talking more than even 2 years ago about
Yeah.
all these subjects. I feel like a lot's happened in the last few years. What do you know about these young kids, this alpha generation?
Yeah, not as much as I don't hear from them as much as I hear from parents, but I did hear just I think yesterday that that generation is not using AI and they're like, oh, AI is for old people. Like they don't want to use it because they understand that it's exploitative and they understand that it's bad for their brain development, their critical thinking and their memory, and they want to use their own brains. And
Good,
that's
good.
that I loved hearing that.
I love hearing that. Give us, Nikki, some final thoughts. What do you want to leave the Warriors with?
Mm. We didn't talk about the lawsuits today, and I just want parents to be aware that there are thousands and thousands of
Yeah,
major
do talk about that a little bit. Do talk about
yeah,
that a little bit. Yeah.
sure. There's a mountain of lawsuits against social media companies from individuals, from school districts, and from state attorneys general who are all alleging that social media companies have addicted and harmed children knowingly and not warned the public about the harms and the dangers of their platforms. The first couple of major lawsuits, the companies lost, and they are having to pay about $400 million. They're fighting trillions of dollars. I mean, if they lose all these lawsuits, they're in the hole for the market cap. Like Meta will go out of business. And this is so important. And this is how I think we're going to see a lot of change, especially the state lawsuits, because those, if they win, if the states win, then they can require injunctive relief, meaning that they can require the companies to make their platforms safer, to actually change their products, to remove addictive features. And that is going to be huge. And so I want parents to pay attention to these lawsuits. And I'm covering them as well as I can. They're happening all over the country. And some of them don't have video feeds. And so I'm doing my best to kind of even get some more funding so I can be at all of these things or have someone there covering it. Because I think that's where we're going to see change happen. And that's where a regular parent can get access to these internal documents that will really change your mind about the decisions that you even make in your day-to-day life about access for yourself and your kids.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so important, those two lawsuits in New Mexico and California, as really the breakthrough product liability, and sharing data as well. That was part of it in New Mexico.
Yeah.
But there are thousands upon thousands, and we know from whistleblowers, right, internal memos, we know this all to be true. I guess I'm supposed to say allegedly again. I know for the two cases, the lawsuits, it was one.
Yeah.
Nikki, I can't imagine. Like everybody should be suing them right now for everything, how they can even get out of this. But I will point out, and you probably know this, that they're spending millions and millions. This new issue 1 report that came out, this quarterly report that tells us about lobbying on Capitol Hill, where they spend millions on lobbyists, big tech, to fight all this child safety legislation, right? So they know there's a problem here. They are fighting tooth and nail against this. When you know what I don't understand, Nikki? Okay, now this may not sound right, but okay, let them do what they're doing. But at the same time, that didn't come out the right way. But at the same time, it would be so easy for them to just have guardrails. Like, you know what I'm saying? To just have, are they that morally corrupt? Now, this is a whole nother program.
Yeah. I mean, I have an example, like, some advocates were able to speak to Snapchat and the team at Snapchat, and they were able to explain how addictive Snap Score is, getting kids to come back every day and monetizing their attention.
Yeah.
And they were like, can you just make it off by default for minors? And Snapchat said, hell no, they will not, because it's a huge revenue generator for them. And so they're not willing of their own accord or pressure from advocates to remove addictive features because it makes them money. And so it has to be mandated by courts or legislators.
You know, we draw a line in the sand now because they have not behaved. History has told us about big tech. They will not. We've given them opportunities to come up to the, table and do something, and they just don't. And they're fighting this so hard. But Nicki, I'm here to say they're losing.
They
They're
are
losing.
losing.
They
That is right.
are losing. And the fact that there are thousands of lawsuits, those 2 lawsuits just were won, right? And the parents are stepping up, and America is stepping up. And Nicki Petrossi is stepping up for us and keeping us aware. Now you're talking to great guests, great experts. Well, Nicki, I want to talk to you again. We got to talk more frequently.
I would love that.
There's a lot going on. I will have all of your information in the body of this video, everything about iReady and the Law Center and everything, so people can take their time. I also want to put a donate button so people can help you as you're covering, because I know you're boots on the ground covering these lawsuits. So I hope somewhere there on your website there's some sort of donate button where people, I think there is. I think I've seen it.
There is. Yeah, sure.
And I'll make sure to put it in capital bold letters. No, so you can do that for us, because that's what we need. We need the boots on the ground and the supporting of the parents, stepping out and doing all of this for us. And you are just an absolute warrior. And I want to thank you for always being part of, these different peaceful marches, as I'll say. Everything's peaceful, everybody. We are peaceful warriors. And being there with the parents and lending your support and just being part of all of this, because it is just an overwhelming job, but when collaboration truly happens, I really feel like this is the year we're getting a lot done. So Nicki Petrossi, Scrolling to Death podcast, and so much more. Thank you for joining the Warriors, and promise me we will talk again soon.
We will. Thank you so much, Lynn.
Thanks, Nicki.